It gets its name from that pointy look. It looks like the incisor of a canine, and so it gets the name dog-tooth spar. And you'll find little pockets like this throughout the cave. It kind of looks like big geodes that have been cracked open is what it looks like. And as we go along and at our next stop, you guys, I am going to discuss a little bit about how these crystals got to be in the Gold Cave and what's not go 46 miles worth of passageway. Get a let in now the next one too. So you probably want to stay behind me on this tour.
There's a little shelf somewhere, so watch your head.
Okay.
In case you didn't hear it. Here it is.
Yeah.
Let's close the gap.
Folks, one of the other type of crystals that you guys will get to see down here, this crystal I'm going to show you, is this one right here that makes this nice layer right here on the rock wall. This crystal right here is called nail-head spar crystal. It too is a calcite crystal that you'll find down here. This is what it would look like if you broke it open. If you did it, it's all this bumpy stuff right here on the rock wall. And this bumpy stuff, the nail-head spar crystal, covers 98% of the surface area of Gould Cave. So the majority of the cave is going to be covered in this nail-head spar.
Additional miles each year on a straight line.
No, it's kind of everywhere. All north, east, south, west,
Because I
up,
haven't seen
down.
anything that I saw that you
Yep.
could take off and,
Nope, it's up, down, all around, everywhere. So, and sometimes awesome to make our caves in. That limestone is very, very easy to dissolve. It does not require much acidity at all. If you ever even want to test that, take a piece of limestone and pour vinegar on it, which is a very weak acid, and it starts dissolving the rock. It's pretty good. But here in the Black Hills, We have a layer of limestone that's about 400 feet thick. We call it the Paha-Sapa limestone. Paha-Sapa is the Dakota word for hills of black, so it's the Black Hills limestone layer. For any of you geology buffs, it's also known as the Madison limestone layer. But here in the Black Hills, that layer has led to a lot of cool things. What happened was many years ago when the Black Hills uplifted and were pushed up into mountains, it forced a whole bunch of cracks into that limestone. And you got some pretty cool things out of that. You got Spearfish Canyon up north and north, Jewel Cave to the west here, Wind Cave to the south, and about 300 other small caves throughout the entire Black Hills when they uplifted. And what happened is those cracks did open up some of our passageways down here, but the biggest thing it did is allowed water to get down into here. All that water had to do is trickle through the surface, pick up some CO2, become slightly acidic, and that acidic water started eating away at our cave passageways and opening them up into what we have today. It also started filling up the cave. So at some point in the cave's history, it was completely filled with water. When that happened, it continued to open up the cave, but when limestone's dissolved, it releases calcite. This calcite mixed with the water became super saturated calcite and started depositing it in layers on the rock wall, like this nailhead spar layer right here. That's how that nailhead spar crystal got to be here in layers, was when the water released it. Did this for many, many years, forming these very thick layers. Then at some point in history, another seismic activity came through the mountains, causing the cave to shift and the water to drain down to the present aquifer, which is about 800 feet below the surface. When this happened, a lot of these crystals had become so thick that without the support of the water, they couldn't keep hold of the rocks. So they came crashing down, forming all this cave litter that you guys see down here on the cave floor. Also put those really cool boulders that are stuck above your guys' heads and everything like that. Any of you guys are nervous about that. We haven't had natural rock movement since the cave was found. All of our rock movements have been man-caused so far at Jewel Cave. We're in a pretty stable cave. The other type of crystal I do want to show you guys too is this stuff right here. This is called boxwork. This is a very unique formation. If you go to Wind Cave, their entire cave is covered in this. It's really, really cool to see. But here at Jewel, it's actually a very rare formation. It's called boxwork because it looks like the interior side of a cardboard box if you broke it open, so they call it boxwork. It's a calcite formation like the other ones we've been seeing. It just formed under different conditions. And what happens, if you look in front of you, you guys see those cracks in that limestone right up in there? For you guys, there's some cracks in these areas. For us, there's a handful of cracks right up there. And for you guys, kind of up in these knobby areas. What happened was many years ago, water seeped through those cracks. When that happened, it deposited that calcite in those cracks, so the calcite filled up the cracks. Over years, the softer limestone's been eroded away, exposing that harder calcite formation we know as boxwork. Easier way to explain this, it's like if you laid bricks and mortar and took out all the bricks and all you have left is the mortar. That's what you guys are seeing right now. It's a very hard formation, trust me. We were exploring down in Jewel Cave and I accidentally fell on some of this. It's a lot harder than you think it would be. It hurts a little bit, but it's kind of a neat formation. So that's one of the other ones you'll see down here. Now, the Michaud brothers quickly found out that all of our beautiful crystals down here aren't worth anything. They are too soft. They're about as hard as your fingernails are. So the brothers quickly gave up on the mining adventure and came up with a new plan. They're like, you know what? That cave to the south, that Wind Cave, making tons of money off being a tourist attraction. Let's offer tours through our small cave. So they went over there, built a huge lodge over there so people could stay the night, built a dance hall, we have the Jewel Cave dance hall over there, built two routes, the Heavenly route and the Dungeon route, and started offering tours at 25 cents a person through Jewel Cave. Ran into a couple problems though. First one, Highway 16 did not run by Jewel Cave. So to get out here was a good long day's wagon ride. You had to really want to come out to see the cave. Second of all, the brothers had only discovered about 3/4 of a mile, making us one of the smaller caves in the hills. And so many of the locals just called us the rat's hole in the wall. So we didn't get good publicity either. The brothers just did not see a lot of people coming out to Jewel Cave. In 1906, some very important events started happening in Washington, D.C. that would forever change the history of Jewel Cave. That year, Congress passed the Antiquities Act. This is a very important act for the National Park Service that not a lot of people know about. The Antiquities Act gives power to the President of the United States to declare areas of scientific or historic interest as national monuments. Big deal, because to become a national park like Yosemite, Yellowstone, Wind Cave, you have to have a bill passed by Congress. So you need to convince the majority of Congress that that land is special enough to be federally funded and federally protected for the rest of its life. For a national monument, you just got to convince one guy, the president, that it needs to be federally funded and protected for the rest of its life. So it's a bit easier to become a national monument. Congress had originally passed this act to protect areas out west. A lot of old Native American sites and old forts were being vandalized or homesteaded, and they wanted a fast way to put them under federal protection to protect parts of history. Mesa Verde was a big pusher for the Antiquities Act back then. Congress never meant for it to be part of the National Park Service. That was a big one, but when they passed it, I do believe they forgot who the President of the United States was at the time. And the President was Theodore Roosevelt. And Theodore Roosevelt was the big pusher for the national park systems. He was the one who said, we need to save these lands for future generations so they can see what makes America great. At the time of the Antiquities Act, though, Congress was kind of putting the stop on that. They're like, Mr. President, we passed enough federal land for you. We're not passing any more national parks. We're done. No more. Then they passed the Antiquities Act. And I'm pretty sure Roosevelt took a look at this act and said, here's my back door. Here's how I get around Congress. Because I can declare all the lands I want as national monuments that I want to protect. But no one's stopping me. There's no one to do it. And so I can put them under federal protection so they won't be homesteaded or mined. And it gives me time to convince Congress they need to be national parks. And that's what he did. He declared over 18 national monuments in his time as presidency, and over half of them became national parks years later. The first one was Devil's Tower up north in Wyoming. We were the 13th national monument in the United States. We were set aside in 1908 for scientific reasons. At the time, they thought maybe we hooked up to Lynn Cave and they wanted to protect another entrance. So the Michaud brothers were paid off for their permit, and we became part of the federal system. So, you guys have any questions about that quick geology or history lesson?
No.
No?
How much were they paid?
They were paid, well, okay, they were paid $700. Maybe. That mile and a half usually rests underneath the canyons, Lithograph Canyon and Hell Canyon. Right now, you guys are at the base of Lithograph Canyon. If you go back up to the visitor center, go out on that patio and look straight west, you're right underneath that first canyon you see. That canyon breaks through the sandstone layer above us and allows water to get down here. When water gets down here, this is when the cave shows off. You get to see really neat formations. Things like stalactites. Stalactites are the type of things that hang tight to the ceiling. They're a calcite formation, like the ones you've been seeing. They form from each drop of water. Each of those little droplets holds just a little bit of calcite in it. When it drops off, it deposits it, adding to the icicle formation we know as stalactites. Now, we're not sure how old stalactites are. For like us, they all grow at different rates and different sizes. But we do know all it does, it takes is a touch of a human finger to kill off the stalactites. Be very careful, they're really cool. You guys notice how it doesn't make that icicle formation at all? It makes kind of that uniform diameter the whole way up and down. That's called a cave kiss. It's cave like that. This right here, the soda straws are completely hollow inside from the top to the bottom. Instead of leaving a droplet of calcite or behind, it leaves a ring of calcite behind, adding to that really cool hollow formation known as soda straws. And soda straws are really fun to find. If you look around, you see a whole bunch of stalactites, and they all have that really unique icicle formation. But when you find a soda straw like this guy right here, you can tell he stands out because he has that same diameter the whole way up and down. So that's a soda straw. Another really neat formation is this stuff right up in here. These are called draperies. These are some of my favorite. Draperies form like stalactites do. They usually form at an angle, so it makes the water run down the edge, and then off. So form out faster than down, adding to that really cool thin formation called draperies. Some of the neatest ones are actually right above your guys' heads right up here. You see some really cool draperies right up here. Another really neat one one too that I like to show you guys is this stuff right down here, this caramely looking stuff that you see. This stuff right here is called flowstone, and flowstone's kind of fun. They make really neat shapes. So how flowstone forms is water's running down throughout here. As the water runs down, it's depositing the calcite with the flow of the rock, so it looks like it's flowing down the rock, and so it deposits that. And then water keeps running on top of it, making it shine, so it gives it that really cool gooey look. Because it's actually hard to rock, but you get that really neat flowstone look that you guys can see right in there. But like I was saying, where water gets into here, this is where this cave shows off. Water is a beautiful artist with limestone caves. You can do a ton of it. But I want to be honest with you guys, this is very rare for Jewel Cave. You don't see a lot of this. One of the neatest parts about the scenic tour though, is we follow Lithograph Canyon for a while. So on this tour, you actually do get to see quite a bit of it as we continue along the tour. But think to yourself, this isn't normally what Jewel looks like. Jewel usually looks like Rum Runners Lane where we've been, so it's kind of neat to go see. Another really neat part about this part of the cave too is, believe it or not, this part of the cave is actually almost never discovered. After the Michaud brothers were paid off for their permit and we became part of the federal system, a couple things happened. In 1908, the National Park Service had yet to be created. So management of your national parks and monuments either went over to the military, as in Yellowstone's case, or over to the nearest federal agency, as in our case. We were turned over to the Forest Service. So the Forest Service took control of the case. The Forest Service had a lot on their plate. They did not want to be dealing with a rinky-dink cave in the middle of nowhere. So their answer to managing Jewel Cave was to tear down the lodge and the dance hall, throw a gate on the cave, lock the cave, and throw the key on the question. How would you be doing the scenic tour without the stairs and the walkways? And see if you guys can answer any of those questions as we continue along. So. Okay, folks, if I could have everyone take a step to the right while staying on the path, I will pass you on your left. Thank you, everybody.
I'm gonna take that. So it's gonna go. No.
Hollow. The Spooky Hollow is going to be the deepest point of the scenic tour. To get down into that area, though, we have to go down some very steep staircases, so I'm going to ask that everybody holds on to both sides of the railing as we go down these stairs.
Yeah, oh, it was a bat.
Yeah.
Feet below the surface, the deepest point of the scenic tour. Now, folks, as the old saying goes, what goes down?
Well, at least it's a path up there.
Yes, it does.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Wrong flash.
You're gonna shoot in front?
We're gonna get to a huge platform that I.
I went on a Tom Sawyer Cave once in Indiana,
Yeah.
and it just happened that it was a school day for the cave. And so we had to bring up the rear of all those kids.
That was
Okay, well, there it is. Okay. On the top of the hill.
This is the last stop.
Depends on how long I talk.
This is interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That's the roof of it.
Oh, nice.
There we go, see the four guys in white shirts.
Where's that?
Presidents, not Russian. Four guys in
Where they named it, because on a good rainy day, behind those rocks right there, you can hear the constant drip of water. So it's like the water torture, they named it the torture cave. But like I was saying before, the Khans are the ones who put this cave back on the map. They put their heart and soul into this cave. It shows. That one day of exploration for them turned into 22 years of exploring here in the cave. They did a ton of work. They're actually the ones who found this scenic route and said this would be a great place to take visitors. It showcases the cave. It shows the wet formations, the dry formations, weird formations like bacon. It's a neat place to take visitors. Even better, it makes a loop so you're not backtracking on each other when you're trying to go through the cave. They got the interest of some senators, and all four of them sold the idea to the Senate in 1967, and we began work on the scenic tour. And by 1972, we opened up our brand new visitor center and scenic route for the public. The Khans continued to explore after that. In those 22 years that they were here, they mapped over 67 miles together, husband and wife couple. So they did a ton of work out here. They're also the ones who passed on the torch of exploration to us next generation and said, you guys need to continue to explore. Who knows where this cave goes or what it has to lead to? And they left us with what I call a teaser. Herb Kahn did this huge study in the 1980s. We have recently just redid it. And what they did is they studied the changes in the barometric pressure at the natural entrance and the two blowholes we know about. And they were able to calculate the tentative volume of Jewel Cave. Based on that, at this time, they believe we've only found 5% of the volume of Jewel Cave. Now, it's not 5% of the mileage, it's 5% of the volume, but still, I mean, that can mean there's huge rooms down in here, it can mean that there's tons of cracks. Who knows? So that's why we go exploring. About every 2 weeks, we send an exploration team out that goes out and maps out the new parts of the cave. Now, it doesn't always happen every 2 weeks, but we aim to have it happen every 2 weeks. The teams will go out to new areas, and they always map when you're in a new area. No matter what's going on, you always map in the new area. When you go in there, why you map is one, you want to find your way home, so you always map that area. But secondly, most importantly, we don't want to know where this cave goes. If we know where the cave goes, we know how to protect the cave. Because what happens on the surface really does affect what happens down here. Things like forest fires, logging, spraying for weeds, that type of thing will affect the cave. So if we know where the cave goes, we know how to better protect it from what we can do on the surface. And so we always map those areas out. Mapping is still pretty simple down here. It's kind of neat. No matter how technologically advanced we get up on the surface, pretty basic. Obviously, GPS units do not work in here at the cave. So we use a compass. Computers will never survive a caving trip, plus we don't want to deal with the weight of them, or for the fact that they're unreliable. If you put like 8 hours worth of data on a laptop computer, then tripped and fell on it and lost all of that, it would not be a good day. So we use a piece of paper and a pencil. That's reliable. We also use a tape measure and an instrument called a thermometer, which measures our angle, declination or inclination of where we're going, so we can figure out if we're going up or down. It's how we've mapped 146.34 miles, and how we continue to map out tons of this cave. Like I said, we try to go out about every 2 weeks. When we go out, we go with no less than 3 people, no more than 6 people. And our trips we can have short trips, they'll be 3 or 4 hours. Usually when we want to put a good impact on the cave, we do a good 24-hour trip. Because the reason they're so long, all of our new areas are getting pretty far away from our entrance areas. The elevator system and the natural entrance. We're getting far away from those. So we usually go in for 24 straight hours, map as much as we can, come back out. That's usually how we do it. However, I do always like to mention, we do have the opportunity down the southeast corner to stay at our base camp. 3 stories below where we started. We felt not hiking up that way, so we have a lower cave. And so we're down there, so this will take us right back up where we started. Like before, we'll do half and half again to get us all back up. I'll take the first half up and I promise to come down for the second half.
Watch the lights
Before we
go
go
out.
on there too, is there any other questions you guys have or anything? No? Okay. I'll take you guys back up here in a second.